and welcome to another episode of Secrets of a B2B Marketer. This episode is the last of this season, and we're soon coming up with season 2. But before we get into that, let's hear out what our new guest, Ms. Poornima Couto, has to say. Poornima is, I'm very, very excited about having Poornima on the show. So Poornima has been the CMO and global marketing head for market making at SLK. In over 2 decades of her industry experience, she's helped large organizations build global brands, create new markets, and ensure customer success. That's a strength that has helped her to be successful. It's her keen eye for trends and the ability to capitalize on change with innovative strategies that's leading her from growth to growth. I'm very excited to have her because she is going to be able to shed some light on critical components like measuring ROI, SQLs, MQLs, performance marketing, the works. So welcome to the show, Poornima.
Thank you, Benita. Thank you for having me here.
Happy to have you. So Poornima, while I have some cursory view of what you do, our audience doesn't. Perhaps you can shed some light on your role at SLK and what does SLK do?
Sure, absolutely. So SLK Software is a technology services provider to large global enterprises. SLK has been around for over 23 years, and we specialize in providing technology solutions at the intersection of trends, challenges, pain points, and we have the ability to bring together AI, automation, and analytics along with our digital capabilities to help our customers sort of really accelerate their digital transformation journey. SLK specializes in banking, financial services, insurance, manufacturing, and retail. And this is just something that we've really sort of dug ourselves deep into. And so we have very deep domain expertise in all of these areas. And we've never lost a customer. So that says a lot about how we engage with SLK and how we engage with our clients at SLK. So it's been an interesting journey for me at this organization. I joined SLK over 2.5 years ago. As their Chief Marketing Officer. And more recently, I've taken on an expanded role of, Global Head of Market Making, which essentially sort of brings the two functions together beautifully, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are going after the right markets, the right audience, creating, the right kind of space for SLK to expand its business and sort of really help more and more enterprises in their journey.
That sounds like a very interesting journey. You have played some very critical role in all the organizations that you've grown. You've now reached the CMO position. Most of the clients that I work with face this one question, or they always ask the juniors and the agencies this one question that I want to ask you on what is the answer you are expecting. And that question is, how do you justify or measure the ROI of marketing?
Right. So, showing ROI in marketing previously, and when I say previously, I'm talking about maybe 4-5 years ago or maybe a little longer, it was very hard because somehow I feel like the measurability wasn't as nuanced as it is today. However, I think, ROI for marketing is a given, is something that people absolutely need to be focused on if they want the function to have a seat at the table. I think that's something that most marketing functions have now sort of moved into, and they have started realizing that ROI is something that cannot be ignored, and naturally that becomes a very important aspect of how marketing becomes a strategic function and a growth driver for the organization. So to that end, I think in the last 18 months or so, we have to see that, and we've seen that marketing functions have started pivoting more and their strategy to a little bit more of outcome-based marketing, So that is very critical, and that kind of really shows the strength and power of what marketing can do for an enterprise and for a business. So I think there are various ways of doing it, but I'll let you sort of get into that.
So actually, you mentioned outcome-based marketing, right? There is always this dichotomy or this dilemma that organizations have on whether to invest in short-term or long-term. And I'm thinking short-term is more often than not, sales, and long-term, of course, being branding and ensuring that there is a legacy being built, which then starts yielding to what will later become short-term goals of sales, right? So when you look at outcome-based marketing, are you looking at short-term? Are you looking at long-term? How are you mapping these? How are you measuring these? I know it's a whole lot of questions, but please take your time.
No problem. See, outcome-based marketing needs to have two different, lens. There is the short-term objectives that we look at, and there is a long-term as well, right? Now, the point is, marketing, especially the CMO role, I would say, has transformed drastically in the recent past, and there is a lot more pressure on CMOs to show revenue, to show growth for the business. It's no longer just about having certain initiatives that gives you the right kind of awareness or advocacy. It's a lot more than that, and therefore the marketing role and the pressure on CMOs to show ROI through revenue, through business sales, through growth is that much more, which means your outcome-based marketing from a business side is more on sales, right? So business and business leaders and the CEO expects sales, expects a pipeline, expects new customers to be acquired as an outcome of our marketing initiatives. However, that is a short-term goal, right? That's something that you want to do for the next 3-4 quarters. You want to achieve in the next, financial year, perhaps. But from a long-term perspective, one cannot take, their eyes off what the brand can do for an organization. Therefore, it's very important to have a continued investment in brand marketing. So that's where, we need to start kind of balancing the two between brand marketing and performance marketing. So performance marketing helps you with your short-term goals. It helps you with, what you need to achieve in the near term. But whereas brand marketing kind of, ensures the longevity, ensures that you're able to continuously build that affinity of your audience towards your brand, create the right kind of positioning, make sure they understand what is it that you bring as value, which is differentiated to your competition. So all of that becomes very important, and you sort of need to, sort of balance the two out. And also you need to be very careful not to lose the brand narrative, right? Because as you go along, that's what's going to hold you in good stead over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So as you continuously, tinker it, fine tune it, and you make sure you're investing in it, your performance marketing also sort of, ensures that you're getting the right kind of outcomes. And the two need to be very closely linked. So even at SLK, our team, we have a team that focuses on brand marketing and a team that focuses on performance marketing, but the two constantly engage and talk to each other. There cannot be a budget trade-off between the two. There has to be accountability between what performance marketing does and how is it aligned to your brand growth strategies. So it's very, very critical that two of them are closely linked, and the two are closely, looked at in terms of being balanced and outcomes that are being driven from both of these initiatives.
I find it very interesting on how much emphasis you placed on performance marketing. And I'm saying that because yesterday I read this LinkedIn post where somebody was asking, name one term. I don't remember the exact articulation of it, but basically it was like, what is dead in marketing? And a couple of comments on that indicated performance marketing. And I was quite taken aback because how can performance marketing be dead, right? It's a sales-oriented side of marketing. And to that, as I contemplated and I was thinking on why would somebody say that, I realized that maybe people are defining performance marketing very differently. What is performance and how are they kind of measuring it? At SLK, how are you defining performance marketing, and what is your take on this very thought that performance marketing is dead?
I don't align with that at all. I have a very different point of view. I don't think performance marketing is dead. See, performance marketing to me, in the most simple state, is paying for results. That's what it is, right? So, and when you say pay for results, obviously there is a whole lot of things that come under it, right? Your click-through rates, the number of clicks you get, the number of leads you get, the pipeline that you generate, the sales you get out of it. So everything kind of falls under the bracket of performance marketing. Maybe the reason somebody has posted that comment about performance marketing being dead is potentially because they were looking at the slightly lower end of the value chain, right? More downstream, which is more on the clicks and those kind of metrics that you look at for performance marketing. But if you think about it, like I said, marketing is a growth engine, which means we have to take ownership of influencing pipeline, influencing sales, influencing demand. So to do that, you have to be able to measure certain outcomes through a performance marketing approach, which means that, when you are putting, your campaigns out there, you are definitely going to be measuring what kind of leads came through. And even the leads, it's not just that top of the funnel leads that you look at. You're looking at qualified leads. How are you taking that lead or that prospect through the funnel of the buyer journey? What are the different things that you are enabling your audience with in order to become more and more educated about your organization, that eventually makes him or her a highly qualified lead, which we call as a marketing qualified lead, which is your MQL. And then, of course, from there, you kind of pass that on to sales, and you sit down with sales and say, hey, listen, these are the different marketing qualified leads that we have sort of generated through these initiatives and campaigns. Now let's sit down and look at them and see which ones really sort of go through the ringer and become even more qualified as a sales qualified lead. So sales then sits down and says, yeah, these are the 10 out of the 15 or 10 out of the 20 that have been generated that I can take into my bucket, and I will go after these guys, and then those become sales qualified leads. So so therefore MQLs, SQLs, all of these, while they may sound as just buzzwords, they do give a certain amount of authenticity and focus on the efforts that is being put in from a marketing standpoint. And it also creates the right kind of outcomes in terms of a pipeline for sales. So that becomes very important, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. How you do it and how you get there can vary. But I don't think, and even the qualification process can vary, but I don't think that's something anyone can ignore or get past.
Okay, all valid points. In fact, I find it very intriguing when you said, different people measure the SQLs and MQLs differently. Would you be open to shedding some light on how SQL does it? And are you measuring specific matrices, or are you looking at it at the end result and looking at the lead and saying, oh, this, sometimes it's very difficult to look at individual pieces. So how are you mapping this, and how does it work at your company?
So at SLK, we have, there is for any organization, there would be a threshold score before which a prospect becomes a marketing qualified lead. So at SLK, we actually have a fairly stringent process. And, my colleague in my team who heads up performance marketing, he's put together a very thought through, stringent approach of how one qualifies into an MQL. So at the very beginning, you obviously define your ideal customer profile. So who is your ICP and what your ICP looks like? It's very important. So which means you kind of figure out what industry should this customer belong to, what geography, what is the function that they belong to, what is the level that they are. So a lot of these demographics sort of play into defining who your ICP is, your ideal customer profile. So that is your starting point for giving a scoring. So let's say you have an interaction with a prospect through some initiative, through some campaign. So the demographics itself will kind of give them a certain amount of score to start with. That won't be a very high score, but that's a nominal score that kind of gets them into the process of becoming an MQL. And after that, it all depends on the behavior of this prospect. And the behavior, we define it through various channels and various actions. So for example, you're running an email campaign. So, the engagement level of this prospect with your email, whether he's opened it, read it, clicked on some links that you've given, or kind of responded to a CTA that has been included in your email, all of those things will give him a certain score. Now, many times organizations try and take the easy way out of giving a lot of score for every action that's taken. And we don't necessarily do it that way at SLK. We're a little bit more stringent. And what we do is there is a slab system that works. So for example, the first email that a prospect has opened, he gets a certain score. But he doesn't necessarily get the same score for opening the second or the third email. Then there is a slab system. Then after the first email, between the second and the fifth email, he gets no scoring at all. The fifth email, he gets a score again. And then there is another slab of 5th to 10th email, he gets no scoring. So 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, he's not rewarded with any points. He has to qualify only after the 10th email. So there is a slab system that works for, email engagement. But then there are other behaviors also that we track. So once he visits our website, what pages is he looking at? How long did he stay on a page? Did he fill out a form? Did he, download an asset? So all of these things will get him even more scoring. And then that kind of adds up, and it keeps adding up, and we keep tracking, how much has this individual, what score is he at, and what were the actions he took in the last few months that has brought him to this score, right? So let's say we invite him to a webinar or a virtual event, and he attends the event, or he registers, he gets a certain score, but he attends, he gets even more of a score. So even there is a distinction in terms of scoring. But what also happens is there's also a setback sometimes. So if an individual decides to unsubscribe, or if he kind of decides to say, or if the email ID is invalid, or if, let's say, he decides he goes into non-business pages on our website, those get negative scoring too. So yes,
you're very strict.
So there is a negative scoring mechanism that's put in place. So yeah, it has to balance out, right? When you give out points, if the behavior is not aligned with what you would like that individual to do, there will also be a negative scoring. So the lead then, becomes a little bit lower in the cycle, and then you kind of have to bring it back up. So essentially he has to reach a certain threshold of a score. After which he is then called as a marketing qualified lead, he or she. And only then these MQLs are kind of pushed into our sales CRM. So there is a linkage between our marketing CRM and sales CRM. Naturally, they're all kind of interconnected. So it goes into sales, and sales gets this lead assigned. And then sales look at it. They look at all of the leads along with our team, and we kind of closely monitor which ones to nurture, which ones to go after. Some of them become sales qualified leads. Some of them are sent back to marketing saying, no, I think these guys need to be nurtured further, or we're not ready to go after them. So they're not qualified by sales. And therefore they go back into a nurture bucket into marketing, and then they kind of go into that cycle of being nurtured some more before they get qualified.
I love this. I'm imagining your funnel is very big at the top and very narrow at the bottom. It's
Absolutely
very broad at the top. But I think it's brilliant because when the sales team does go after a well-nurtured lead, the conversion rates would be much better.
Absolutely. Because see, at the end of the day, then that this prospect is absolutely primed with an awareness and an education of what SLK does, and we've understood what are the interest areas. We are very closely tracking what are the themes that he or she seems to be more interested in. What assets has he or she downloaded? What is his current profile? You look at what he or she does in his organization, and then try and map the two together to see, okay, This is probably why, he's more interested in downloading an ebook on test automation versus something else, right? So, I mean, that's just an example, but I'm just saying that, you really get a good sense and you get a lot of insights into what this prospect is looking for or what he or she is interested in.
Also shed some light on where in the decision-making process are they, right? Because in B2B marketing, our decision-making processes are very time-consuming. A, there are multiple stakeholders, and B, the very fact of, sorry, the first time someone thinks of, should we contemplate this, should we opt for a service like this, to the actual purchase is often very long, and it goes through a very up and down cycle. And then there are those lull periods, right? Because that person got busy with something else, not because the need has stopped. So I'm imagining that when you do this kind of an MQL, SQL exercise, it sheds a lot of light on where is that person on the decision-making cycle. Does that happen, or is it just my imagination?
No, absolutely it does. And the thing is, it is not one individual. Usually it's a buying group.
Correct.
Or a buying center, right? And they all kind of go through this journey of first becoming a little bit more aware of what's out there. Is this something we need for our organization? And they identify their own need based on a prevalent pain point or a challenge that they're facing, and then kind of start looking at who are the right kind of service providers who are out there. And most often they're not, they tend to go to their immediate incumbents, right? Typically they talk to their own partners to start with. But that is the reason other companies need to constantly put information and content out there to show themselves as thought leaders and experts in that space, which is where they kind of become part of the consideration set for this buyer or this buying group. Yeah. The consideration set becomes a little bit larger, and they go beyond their existing partner ecosystem, and they kind of look at who are the others out there who can potentially help me solve this problem. And therefore it's very important for companies or marketers to constantly showcase expertise, demonstrate thought leadership, demonstrate a proven ability to be successful in something like this. Therefore your case studies and all of those collaterals become very important, and then you take that buyer and the buying group through that journey of the funnel and have different types of collaterals. In the top of the funnel, something else in the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel is a little bit more of really sealing the deal and making sure the prospect is convinced that you're the right partner to go with.
I love how well thought through your whole marketing process is, because one of the things we're realizing more and more is a lot of companies are not doing this yet. Okay, and it's not that the CMO doesn't want to, but the kind of variables that need to be in place are not. So to give you a simple example, my company manages social media for the organizations and the C-suites. And we find that they're still questioning the ROI of just the social media piece, right? And we often tell them that, look, this is in itself not a whole. It's a part of your process. And it's the value chain that is to be valued and not just the piece that is to be valued. Like you said, thought leadership. If the organization is not building the thought leadership, then the rest of it will not, your social media will become the weak link, right? You don't want it to become the weak link, and that's why you do it. It's not the ROI of social media itself, but what it does to the value chain that needs to be measured. At SLK, are you also measuring something like that? Or how are you evaluating this?
We do. So social media is, what do I say? It is something that needs to be leveraged in the right way, right? Typically, we've seen that, and social media is important from a talent pool perspective, also very, very important. Because what happens is customers and the audience that you want to go after in the terms of your addressable market, they may or may not be so inclined towards following an organization's social page, right? They would prefer to follow individuals, which is where your leaders and all the customer facing folks at an organization need to be active on social, need to be actively reposting content from your organization's page, actively talking about what you do, because your prospects and your customers are only going to follow people, not organizations as much. But we do track quarter on quarter, what is our followership increase, what is the amount of impressions we've created, who are the people who have now started kind of following us. But at SLK, our focus is more on employer branding through social media versus but of course there is a lot of prospect focused content that goes there, but the intent is to kind of ensure that there is enough material for anyone who comes to our SLK Software's page to understand what we do and the kind of work we do and the kind of areas that we seem to be having a really strong hold on. So it's very important to do that, but it's also important that you're laying emphasis on your customer facing leaders and people at SLK to be active on social and leverage that as a sales channel. So that's crucial.
Very well said. And with those very interesting insights, I think this has been a fabulously insightful one from any marketer who's looking to figure out, how do I get my ducks in a row? This is the episode for them to listen to for sure. So thank you so much for sharing those, Poornima. I would like to do a quick rapid fire with you, all marketing terms, but I want to get your take on those because they are some of the things that we may not have delved much into. So if you're ready, can I start?
Sure.
Okay. Email marketing.
Required.
Okay. Website cookies.
Very much required. Because you need to track what your audience is doing once they attend your once they come and visit your site. It's very, very crucial. So absolutely needed to track insights.
Ads on SEM, if I may put it that way.
Awareness.
You don't think that leads to performance marketing?
Well, that does, to an extent. It does lead to performance marketing, but what it does at the very core of it is build awareness for your brand.
Okay, very valid. Measuring non-measurable matrices.
Keep it low. So my thing is, you measure what you can and do very little of what you cannot measure. Because at the end of the day, it is important to justify the spends. So if you're not able to measure something, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it at all. So yeah.
What about those things which are relevant, required, but not measurable?
I think there has to be some way of adding some measurement metrics around it. I know that it's a hard one, but important to attach it or link it to some measurability.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily have to be quantifiable. It can even be a qualifiable measurement metric.
I see why you're so heavily inclined on outcome-based marketing.
Yes.
It keeps showing up in the conversation, and I'm very, very, very intrigued on how much emphasis you are able to place, and rightly so. Okay, because end of the day, if you're not giving an outcome, then it's not an investment; it's a cost, right?
Absolutely, and outcome-based marketing, pushes you to really align yourself with business objectives. There's just no two ways about it. It has to be closely linked. It has to be something that is of value to business. It needs to be tangible. If it is not, then you won't have a seat on the table. You won't be considered, as a growth driver. And at SLK, we are so focused on outcome-based marketing, and we're so focused on generating the right kind of business outcomes. So to a point where we are trying to move from being a cost center to, a profit center even. So it's very critical that we do that.
Very interesting. And I would love to delve deeper on that. We are short on time though. Perhaps in a future episode, we can delve a lot more on how can marketing become a profit center. I think it already is. It's just a matter of how do we prove that it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, in another episode, perhaps we can delve a lot more on that. So thank you so much, Poornima. Today we spoke about outcome-based marketing. We spoke about performance marketing. We spoke about SQLs and MQLs. Is there something that you'd like to add? Anything you missed out?
Not really, but I would, the only advice I would give to fellow marketeers is that keep focused and keep your eyes on delivering those outcomes, both short term and long term, and find a way to balance it. Don't let there be a trade-off between the two, especially when it comes to budget allocations, and also have confidence in what we are able to deliver for the organization, because it's important to show what results in the activities that have been performed, right? So that is where you become more and more aligned to business. So I think it's important to stay focused on that. Sometimes it becomes exhausting to kind of really keep driving those results quarter on quarter, year after year, but I think if we keep at it and be persistent, I think the outcomes will be there.
That's brilliant. Very well said indeed, Poornima. And very, very encouraging for our fellow marketers who are listening to the show. And with that, we come towards the end of this, not just this episode, but also this season. I'd like to remind our audience that we will be back with a new season in 2024, hopefully in January 2024. There will be enough and more announcements on our social media channels, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much. Really, really excited about today's episode, Poornima. I'm sure that our audience will love it, and they are recommended to leave comments on what they liked about the show, what were their takeaways, and in case they want to follow Poornima or my company Vanilla Skills, the link is going to be there in the description, so they can choose to follow all three of us.
Thank you, Benita, for having me. I think it was very interesting, discussing these topics, and it serves as a reminder to everyone and to ourselves on what we need to kind of be focused on. So thank you so much for having me, and it was great chatting with you.
It was an absolute delight, Poornima. You have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you. You too.